transparency and portability.
Thank you very much, Your Majesty. Thank you very much indeed.
Election Board Secretary Leo Winters and members of his staff are hard at work compiling a list of those candidates for political office in the recent elections who did not turn in their final statements by today as required by law. Say, Mr. Secretary, what do you do in the cases of those names that don't turn them in? Are you turning their names over to the county attorneys?
Yes, under the law we have to. Candidates that do not file expenditure reports are subject to prosecution. The statute carries a minimum 5-day jail sentence. And if they're not received by this evening, we're forced to turn them over to the county attorney.
You're tattling on them all.
We're going to tattle on every one of them.
Advertising is expensive. Political advertising is even more so. A full page in a newspaper costs up to $1,800. Experts say that successful gubernatorial campaigns sometimes cost $250,000 and more, counting primary, runoff, and general election costs. When Bob Kerr beat Roy Turner for the Senate 4 years ago, one expert estimates that cost each man $500,000. As the figures being turned in at the election board today are studied, and one remembers that TV and radio spots can cost up to $250 each, you must remember that $28,000 doesn't go very far. But happily, no one spent anywhere near the $30,000 maximum. Bill Atkinson's total was turned in today. It was $28,000. And J. Howard Edmundson's came in yesterday. It was pretty close to $28,000 too, both comfortably below the maximum of $30,000. No one has ever been jailed or fined for violating this part of the Oklahoma election laws, but it could happen. Understand that before you go into the grand jury, you're free to tell us what's on your mind. What do you think you'll be asked?
I have no idea what the grand jury will ask me.
Well, you yourself made did some of the groundwork that led to this grand jury being called, I believe.
I prepared the petition.
And what topics did you take up?
The first one in the petition was the shakedown of the employees in the Office of the County Assessor.
Is there good evidence that that took place?
Yes, we've presented checks to the county attorney's office already, which substantiate that.
Those are still in their hands?
Oh, yes.
What are some of the other charges?
One is that Mr. Craigin Smith collected over $2,000 off the county on fraudulent claims for mileage, which he didn't travel.
Mr. Smith has been turned down by the voters now. Isn't it a little pitiless to go on persecuting the man? Do you think there will be any softening of this thing?
Well, I wouldn't think so. If the law's been violated, it's been violated. If it hasn't, why, he's entitled to be cleared.
Will you be in charge of the office that he will have been formerly in charge of?
Oh, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't a candidate.
I know, but there's a rumor that you actually will be pulling the strings.
No, I think that's strictly a rumor without any foundation. Mr. Ford will be the county assessor.
What good do you think this grand jury will do?
Oh, it's always a question what good any grand jury might do. It at least will clear the air.
We have no visibility at this point. We see absolutely nothing but two trucks. We still cannot see the signal light at the next corner. We know nothing of what goes on ahead of the vehicle, ahead of us. Now that vehicle has moved over and our vision has opened up considerably. We have one car up here turning left. It looks as though we may be moving. The car ahead of us now, because of our closeness, is sapping 50% of our visibility right now. As we drop back somewhat, we are then able to see several vehicles, including the large truck up ahead. We are now in a fairly comfortable space cushion, which affords us an opportunity to keep our eyes moving constantly, to be able to pick up those vehicles that are trailing behind us, moving up in the other lanes and so forth. Seeing is so important to driving, and yet how many drivers handicap their own ability to see by the manner in which they position their vehicles in the traffic picture. This vehicle ahead of us right now is still taking up too much of our visual capacity. Now that this vehicle turns away, see what has happened to our ability to see. We can now see the horizon.
You mean seeing is the big thing in this driving business?
Seeing is the only thing in driving. We assume that most people have learned long ago how to make a vehicle go and stop, and most people do understand and obey, for the most part, traffic rules and regulations. But the most common excuse that is still rendered at the scene of an accident for having had an accident is, "Officer, I didn't see him."
Is a Zerat applicator. It's plastic filled with cotton, soaked with tap water. It costs 39 cents to make, but it has sold for up to $50. This gadget was developed by a Chicago man and woman in 1953. It claims to expand your atoms, and in doing so, it will cure any disease known to mankind, including cancer, tuberculosis, diabetes, and so forth. A man whose job it is to investigate these things is Mr. Dick Stalvey of the Bureau of Investigation, the American Medical Association in Chicago. Dick, what do you think is the most serious field of medical quackery?
Well, we believe that probably the most serious field of quackery is that of cancer quackery, where someone offers a worthless cure for cancer.
About how many cancer cures are there, Dick?
Well, each state probably has 10 or 15 local ones. However, there are around right now about 6, which are used throughout the country and all over the world. And all of these are absolutely worthless. There are different types of them. Most of them are so-called secret cures, known only to one promoter or one so-called doctor. The most popular one at this time happens to be a cure that comes out of Texas. It's a simple preparation, very similar to a cough medicine with some herbs in it. Has no effect in the value or in treating cancer, and yet last year the clinic which puts it out grossed over $1,600,000. Another real popular one is a shot which is offered for the cure of cancer and other diseases, the so-called Coke treatment for cancer. It has been proved to be absolutely worthless. In fact, government scientists who have examined it say that they cannot detect anything other than distilled water, and yet these shots are sold all over the country for around $100 apiece. As a matter of fact, right in Oklahoma City, we know that the shots are being given in this area, and they're actually distilled water. That is a Coke cancer cure.